Hello WWE Universe and welcome to a review here as we take a look at the results for NXT Takeover Brooklyn number 3. This is the third year in a row that NXT Takeover have taken over Brooklyn, New York. So let's see what went down. And we're going to start things off with obviously a one-on-one match where Adrian Asami would face Johnny Gargo, who obviously used to be a part of a group called DIY, but obviously the group split up in the last takeover that took place. So we now have the scenario where, well, it basically led to the match where obviously Johnny Gargo got distracted by some superstar who managed to interfere and cause him the match against Adrian and Tommy, where obviously he managed to win the NXT in his takeover match against Johnny Gargo. So obviously that was the first match complete, and then we come to the NXT Tag Team Championships, where we would have the long-awaited battle between the Saints and Aerie and the Authors of Pain. Well, Saints and Aerie certainly had a match up their sleeve, and they managed to become the first team to beat the Authors of Pain to become the new Tag Team Champions, only to be attacked by a new team of superstars who would come to NXT out of surprise. Bobby Fischer and Kyle O'Reilly, who were the two newbies who would eventually show up on the stage and attack the Centenary and the Authors of Pain. So they're certainly becoming a target to the Tag Team Champions for sure, with their presence felt. And then we come to Esther Black, who would have another takeover moment against Hindu Atami, who obviously has now returned and finally becoming a part of this takeover in Brooklyn. LDS Black obviously manages to beat Hindu Atami, and he comes out victorious after having a special entrance during NXT Takeover by a live band, the first ever live band on NXT. And then we come to the NXT Women's Championship match, where Ember Moon's task was simple, to finally be the one to defeat Asuka for the NXT Women's Championship. And she came close in so many corners, only to somehow Asuka using the submission hold that she used on Bayley to win the championship, using it on Ember Moon, and manages to win. And still NXT Women's Champions, pretty much within a year since she became the NXT Women's Champion, which is crazy just to think that she's nearly 2 years now as being a champion, which is crazy. And then we eventually come to the main event, the NXT Championship match, where Glorious Bobby Roode will face the undefeated Scotsman, the returning Drew McIntyre, who had basically returned this year to WWE as part of NXT, as Drew McIntyre's goal was to return NXT to the people by winning the NXT title, and that's exactly what he did during the main event. But what he didn't see coming, however, was the fact that another superstar would show up, a superstar from another wrestling company, the Ring of Honor's Bullet Club crew. Adam Cole would actually arrive to NXT along with Bobby Fischer and Carl Ray to attack Drew McIntyre following his victory as the NXT champion. So it looks like Adam Cole's going to certainly be a wild card when it comes to Drew McIntyre's championship reign, given the fact he might be the next in line to possibly win the championship, perhaps. Perhaps this could be the guy who will somehow get himself in a championship match and end up facing off against Drew McIntyre at some point. So an interesting moment right there to see 3 superstars making a debut and making a name for themselves, not only on Authors of Pain and Centenary, but also making a name out of themselves through Drew McIntyre, who also is the new NXT champion. So the fact that, and it's also interesting that the Centenary had been attacked, because you would think the Centenary were the bad guys, right? But it kind of seems to set the stage that perhaps maybe they're going to become good guys now, along with Drew McIntyre. Perhaps that's where things are going to go. who knows? But we'll see how things develop from here. But interesting stuff, isn't it? Very, very interesting stuff, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how things are going to set up. I think they're going to set up quite nicely, in my opinion. So, yeah, looking forward to it. I think we're in for a treat, in my opinion. I think we could be in for some interesting things by the time the next NXT Takeover takes place, which is probably going to be, well, I'm not too sure how many takeovers we've got left. I would assume we've got 2 left, or yeah, roughly. I think there's either going to be 2 more takeovers, or there'll only be just 1 more to come, possibly around December time, is what I'm guessing, or possibly November time. I think November is probably the most likely candidate of when we'll see 1 more takeover before the end of the year. So that's when I reckon we'll have our next NXT takeover. But the question is, where will it be? Hopefully we'll find out some details soon of where exactly the next NXT takeover will take place, whether it will be in Canada again like it was a year ago, or whether it will take place in a completely different location that NXT has not been showcased yet. Perhaps it will return to the UK by November time. Who knows? Anyways, with that said, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in my next new WWE Universe, as I'll discuss about the latest roster reveal for WWE 2K18. So see you then.